This is your Chargers linebacker, Dan Henley, and you're tuning in with Chargers Unleashed.
Welcome to another edition of Chargers Unleashed. Jake Hefner and Dale Wolkenstein here with you from the LAFB Network. If this is your first time tuning in the show, make sure to hit that like and subscribe button on YouTube. You can also follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. Dan Wolkenstein, it feels like it's been a minute. It literally has been a week since we have talked any Chargers football, which is wild, even though considering the high that everybody is still coming down on off from the comeback victory against the Denver Broncos last Thursday. The Chargers coming off their mini bye, now traveling to Foxborough for a pivotal win and you're in playoff matchup as it relates to the Chargers' overall playoff chances. Dan, we haven't gotten a chance to talk, obviously, due to the holidays over the early part of this week. Merry Christmas. Hopefully you all had a great time spending the holidays with your family and friends. But Dan, it's back to business, and it starts tomorrow for the Chargers. Win and you're in. Get to 10-6, and you can solidify your spot in the 2024 playoff picture. 2025 playoff picture.
Yes.
Don't even know what year it is anymore.
It has been a minute, Chargers fans. Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, Happy Holidays to you and yours, and upcoming Happy New Year as well. Hope everybody had a fantastic vacation with their family and friends. I know the holidays are always the best for everybody, so appreciate everyone, and I understand everyone's in different situations, but love and happiness and joy to everybody this year and for the year coming. Not gonna lie, Jake, this has been a struggle of a week. I love the holidays, love being with family and friends. I've gone through it on the ringer in short. Like, I've had food poisoning.
Physically, mentally, metaphorically, whatever oracally you can put. Dan Wolkenstein has experienced it.
You name it. And I'm just tired. And not to be a poo-poo, but like, I'm just tired. So I apologize in advance. But good news, Chargers Unleashed. Viewers and listeners did show up. We do have 3 voicemails ahead of this episode, so we'll go into those as we continue. Again, you can call into the Chargers Unleashed hotline at any time with your 30-second voicemail or question, 323-902-7586. But Jake, from me and my family to you and yours, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and happy potential playoff clinching weekend. Feels good. It feels good. Jake, before we get to the matchups and kind of playoff implications and storylines, let's quickly pay the bills. Let's talk about our friends.
I want to remind everybody that BetOnline is the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for everything football. BetOnline has every stat, every matchup, and even live odds and spreads to bet on during the games. You think you know your stuff? Get in our $200,000 mega contest and pick 5 games against the spread every single week for your chance at weekly prizes and a share of up to $200K. When the game is over, head on over to Online Casino and get on a game of blackjack or poker or online with one of our 150 slot games. Head on over to the website today. That is betonline.ag to get in on the action. BetOnline, the game starts here.
So, Jake, before we get to the matchup, let's talk about latest injury news and updates that we have received. Positive and negative from both sides, if we're being quite honest. I think exciting news for Chargers fans is J.K. Dobbins was recently activated, not only put on the 21-day window, but also then activated today as of Friday, December 27th. Also, I believe Gus Edwards is out this following game.
Yes.
And Eddie Jackson, the new safety for the Chargers, has also been elevated and will be active for this Chargers game against the Patriots. We didn't get a chance to talk about that yet. Some injuries on the New England side as well, Jake. What are the latest?
So one of their biggest corners, and this will become a pivotal scenario in terms of who's going to be covering Ladd McConkey throughout this matchup. Marcus Jones is out for New England, which is big, and we'll talk about that a little bit more. You know, when you talk about a secondary that is built with Christian Gonzalez, Marcus Jones is just another aspect of that. But it'll be interesting to see in terms of where the coverage is going to shift, who specifically is going to be on Ladd McConkey, how New England may determine on how they're going to move around their secondary. On top of that, Dan, New England's center, Ben Brown, who was coming into this game with concussion, did not end up passing protocol. He is officially out for this game. And that's big for New England's offensive line, which in and of itself is still a work in progress, which means Cole Strange is going to be now inserted into that center spot. And for those who don't know, Cole Strange has not played much center in his NFL career. So hopefully it's something that the Chargers can exploit. Dan, you had talked about Gus Edwards being out. Also out for this game, Denzel Perryman, after he had re-aggravated his injury in the Denver Bronco game. Trey Pipkins is also officially out for this game, which now means that Jamari Sawyer is going to be stepping into that right guard spot. So some moving parts around, and then officially on the questionable list, you have Will Dissly, Hayden Hurst, and Elijah Molden, who are questionable. I know it'd be great to get Elijah Molden back after he was absent for that Denver Broncos game. So interesting injury reports, but none bigger than getting number 27 back, the freak show himself, J.K. Dobbins, coming back at arguably the best possible time off of his forced stint on IR. Now with Gus Edwards being out, you have to believe that, especially even if we're thinking about the weather conditions that are going to be up there in Foxborough, could the offensive game plan go through number 27?
I mean,
sounds like it might.
A running back for sure. Yeah, so a lot of moving parts, a lot of question marks, and a lot of honestly mixed emotions in that. I think with the Trey Pipkins being out component, I think this seems like a run first type of move with Jamari Sawyer being there. I think that's a good thing for this Chargers team. I believe Matt Money Smith talked about this recently, where I think generally speaking, and I agree with him, this team is better moving forward as an offensive line than it is moving backwards and protecting. I know they have two stud offensive tackles, but the inside is not great. And so if we can get them run blocking versus pass blocking, I think that's more of an advantage to them. And I think Jamari Sawyer is a pretty good run blocker. So if they can lean on that, I'd like it. J.K. Dobbins makes me nervous. I'm so excited that he's back, but also I would like him to be back for the playoffs. And as long as we can make sure that happens, we're good. Now, the most important part, the Chargers aren't in the playoffs yet. So you can't count your chickens until they hatch. And these chickens are still one win away.
Correct.
So until you're in, you win. And that's what matters. So whatever they need to do to win, if that game's a wrap and they're able to get up, huge, call it a game, take all your horses out, it's over. Until then, which we'll talk about playoff scenarios here in a second, you got to go for the win. And say what you will about this Patriots team and their record and the struggles they've had. It's a feisty team. It's a feisty team that you just saw. They put up a scare for the Buffalo Bills last week.
Don't take them lightly.
Any given Sunday. So I think this is, regardless of all of that, Jake, this is a game in which the Chargers should win. And so far this season, the Chargers, you and I have talked about it. They win the games they're supposed to win, and they're competitive in the rest. This is the game they're supposed to win. You got to think that Jim Harbaugh and company will have this Chargers team up and ready and prepared to go into a sleety, seemingly, New England, Foxborough atmosphere. Jake, do you want to get to some of the voicemails real quick? Let's set the stage. Someone from Boston called in and gave us their thoughts, their feelings on what to hopefully see with this Chargers game against the Patriots come tomorrow, Saturday. Let's hear from Bob from Boston.
Hey, Bob from Boston calling. Long time.
First off,
great.
He's not lying. It's Bob from Boston. You heard that twang, right?
Bob from Boston with a lot of inflection behind it.
Bob from Boston.
Chargers fan. Long time. I go back to John Hadel and the immortal Lance Allworth to...
Hell yes. Hell yes.
I love Bob.
Now we're talking.
Air Coryell and Faustomania. Hey, listen, guys, as a Bostonian who loves the Chargers, I was
Chargers.
always upset by the Patriots cheating and Belichick disrespecting the Chargers and LaDainian Tomlinson by mocking the Sean Merriman Show Me Dance right on the Chargers logo back in the day.
Dude, he's bringing out some goodies. Or not so goodies, if you want to say that.
I was going to say not so bet some baddies, but relevant baddies. Go on.
But now we got Jim Harbaugh, coach who has never, ever cheated, in town to punish the Patriots on Saturday. I want the Chargers to blow through town like a hurricane and knock over all those smug Patriots grillers with their Tom Brady hot dogging and their Gronk and hamburgers.
Tom Brady hot dogging Gronk and
And
hamburgers.
hamburgers.
I want the Chargers to run through the Pats D like a knife through cheesy bread. Let's see the Chargers trounce the
Cheesy bread? Oh,
Cheesy bread.
cheesy bread sounds absolutely delicious.
cut off their sleeves, stomp on their damn little Elvis Presley wannabe logo on midfield. Brother Dan, you always have a place with me in Boston. You may not have heat, man, but you have a place here. Love the show. Chargers Unleashed!
Bob from Boston.
Wow.
First time caller.
Wow.
Thank
First
you.
of all, it's good to know that we have some listeners on the East Coast, specifically in Boston. I thought that when you told me that there was someone calling from Boston, it's like, okay, it's nice to get a little friendly rivalry and Chargers Unleashed and, talk to some opposing fans every now and again. That's great. But hell no. Not only was he a Chargers fan, longtime Chargers fan, bringing up John Hadel and Lance Allworth. Take me back.
Bob from Boston. Honestly, he had me stopped at cheesy bread. That sounds delicious. Like a
Dan,
hot knife through
you
cheesy
used to live
bread?
on that side. You used to live on that side of the country. You know specifically what it's like over there.
Oh, yeah. It's cold. It's real cold.
Oh yeah, it's cold.
Especially nowadays. Yeah. Oh, yeah. That brings me back, man. But Foxborough, that place is wild. First off, it's in the middle of nowhere. So if anybody who's been to Foxborough, you would know there's like a 1 or 2 lane road and you think it's in Boston. No, it's like 40 minutes outside of Boston and there's nothing out there except Bob Kraft's like mansion of a palace and they built up everything there. And it is Foxborough. Bob from Boston. Thanks for calling in. Appreciate it. Would love to send some cheesy bread all to you. That sounds amazing. Go to your local grocery store, get some cheesy bread, have it for us, and go get a lobster roll or something. Go have a lobster roll. Go make a 16-ounce steak and have yourself a day. Fire up the smoker. Enjoy the time with the family. Happy New Year. Chargers play Boston.
The only thing I'm disappointed in that whole little rant that you just talked about is you did not turn on your Boston accent.
It's hard for me to do a Boston accent because I'm not.
Just replace ER with A and hold the A.
No, but it's not A. It's an ah. It's an ah. Yeah, it's an ah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
A.
Bob from Boston.
Smoker.
Yeah, Bob from Boston forgot to go to the harbor.
Put some steak on the smoker. Have a couple of beers. Watch the Sox go yard in fucking Fenway. You can turn it on, Dan. Come on.
Sidebar, I did watch the Sox go yard at Fenway, and I did watch the Sox win the World Series while I was sitting there in the middle of... Yeah, it was great. Fantastic. Okay, enough about Boston. This is a game the Chargers should win, and we'll talk about the individual matchups and such, but how much of this is you... Like, how nervous are you for this game? Because normally... previous pessimistic Jake is waiting for the other shoe to drop. This is a definition of a trap game. The Chargers will lose this. They'll find out, but it's a little different Jake this season. Yeah. So how are you feeling?
First of all, it's very refreshing to have this change. And it's amazing what a group of individuals as it relates to the coaching and the front office can do to one's personality as it relates to the team when you get results the way that the Chargers have gotten in a year that for some would have considered it a rebuilding year. But to your question, Dan, I'm not nearly as nervous as what I normally would be. The weather is probably the one aspect that gives me the nerves the most because the Chargers haven't played in the elements that much. This, as far as the weather report is projecting, you're probably looking at it around 44 degrees. Some good chance at precipitation possibly, which leads me to believe that this is going to be a run-heavy game. But, Dan, remember, I go back to that game against Arizona, which a lot of us feel like that was one that could come back and bite the Chargers in the ass for dropping that game the way that they did. And I never felt like, and I have not felt similar since, that they were going to lose another game like that. So now you're looking at New England. Currently has the position of the second overall pick in the draft. They've only won 3 games on the season. What gives me confidence, Dan, is if you go back to that game-winning speech that Jim Harbaugh gave during Broncos postgame, he talked about we're at 9 wins. 9 wins doesn't quite get you in the playoffs. 10 is going to get you in the playoffs. I love the fact that even in the midst of a celebration and many good reasons for being in that type of a mood, you're not taking away focus on the job is not done.
The job's not done. I was just thinking Kobe Bryant meme. Job's not done.
Yes. So reasons like that and reasons similar to what we saw against Tampa Bay and what we saw against in that Arizona game, that gives me reason for optimism. Outside of certain players coming back and ultimately matchups that we're going to get into, here's the intangibles that the Chargers have not had as it relates to those type of games. Now, you go back to the last few games that the Chargers have played against New England, it's been a very bizarre set of circumstances. Remember last year's game, Dan?
6-3?
The 6-3 barn burner? Remember the time before that Justin Herbert played New England? That was his rookie year. Nobody wants to remember that. Why? Because the Chargers got demolished.
Like wasn't that 45-3?
Yeah. It was a ridiculous number. So as far as Justin Herbert's record or performances against New England, statistically it hasn't been the best. But I think the way that this offense is built now, and especially the coaching aspect of it, it has me feeling a hell of a lot more confident going into this week.
And for those watching on YouTube, yes, I did mute my mic while I'm eating Cheez-Its. I'm hungry. I have not had time to do anything this entire week, so excuse me while I do that. I'm on mute, so I'll make sure I don't crunch in the microphone so you don't hear that. Jake, I think this is a matchup. Let's get to the Chargers offense versus the Patriots defense. This team is built for this, and I think this is what is exciting for me. Rarely have we talked about this Chargers team being built for December, winter football on the road. That just has not been their MO. And I thought it was so poetic in that Broncos mini movie that the Chargers did. I don't know if you caught this, but Derwin James late in that game is on the sidelines talking about, like, we're built for this. Like, they're not ready for this. I'm paraphrasing. I forget exactly what he said, but basically, we've been planning for this our entire year. We're built for this end of game, end of season scenario, and they're not going to outwill us. That's what this reminds me of. The defense travels. The running game with J.K. Dobbins travels. Coaching travels. And you got a stellar superstar quarterback. With all those things, like Kevin Garnett says, anything is possible. So when I look at the Chargers offense versus the New England defense, I mean, the New England defense isn't great. And obviously their record is terrible, but 24th in points allowed, 21st in yards, 28th in turnovers forced. I guess they're somewhat good. They're 13th in passing, which is good. You'll take that. Otherwise, rush defense is terrible. Christian Barmore's not there. And the Chargers offense, again, while the Chargers offense isn't great, the things that the Chargers offense should be good at, or should be better at now, especially with J.K. Dobbins, play to their hands. So make no mistake about it. This Chargers team should win. They should win. Chargers offense has the advantage against the New England defense. Chargers should be able to run, should be able to lead on them. Justin Herbert should be able to take advantage of the secondary. I know Christian Gonzalez is a dude. But one of the things, I know Chargers fans want to harp on them not having that superstar wide receiver, which is true. They are deep at having receivers where you don't know who they're going to throw to, which sometimes can play to their advantage. And so Chargers can go, like you saw last game, 10 deep with who Justin Herbert wants to throw to. This feels like another one of those games. Chargers are usually in bad weather games. Offensive players usually have the advantage because they know where they're going and the defense doesn't. So think about cutting and stopping and all that kind of jazz. So you take a great Chargers quarterback, Jim Harbaugh run offense, hell, a Greg Roman offense with his horse now, with Kamani Vidal and now returning J.K. Dobbins, and a Patriots team who, honestly, do they really want to win that bad? I know you want to win for Drake May. I get all that, but also, that fan base, they're like, please lose. So I think this is a game that Chargers should win. I think the matchup on the Chargers offense favors them. And I would like to see the momentum carry from that second half in Denver with Justin Herbert kind of taking things over. Another week to get healthy. The cold does some weird things, man. And so does New England. So anything else on the offensive side for the Chargers I'll speak to?
Yeah, there's a reason why I had put these two images up here. Number one, I think if this is a game in the elements the way that it looks like it's going to be, I talked about J.K. Dobbins leading up to this year before he even took a snap for the Chargers, and just we talked about it. We've heard it from interviews just about how passionate and just how reinvigorated he felt coming off of this injury, just ready to go. I think you take him out of this offense for 4 weeks, I think he's going to come back with a vengeance, Dan. The yards per carry attempt with him and without him in this Chargers lineup, it just makes this offense drastically different. The reason I put Keion White opposite is obviously this is where a focal point of it is going to be, not just as it relates to Keion White, but the other members of that New England defensive line, Yannick Ngakoue, Jeremiah Parms Jr. But then there was an interesting comment that I found about Keion White earlier this week. I'm not sure if you came across it. Just disheveled with his play. There was questions that he was even answering as it alluded to his future with the team. And a lot of people are making a big deal about this just in terms of like the timing and adding more to what the locker room situation is like. I get it. NFL players play. It just may not be the right time for that type of perception going on. He's not happy with the way that he's playing. He's not happy with his run defense. It was basically just all comments about himself, not the organization. He wasn't putting anybody else down but himself. But it's when you get to that point, when you start having meltdowns like that and those type of comments, yes, it can drastically affect your play moving forward.
Look at Chicago. Look at the Bears right now. They lost 6-3. They were 4-2. I saw this graphic and I just didn't realize how much things went in the tank for them. They were 4-2 and then lost 10 straight. Like, that's what losing does to you. It just snowballs. And you think of a Caleb Williams, Keenan Allen. I mean, they got Roma Dunze. I mean, that offense is stacked. And people say, oh, well, they don't have an offensive line. Justin Herbert didn't have an offensive line his rookie year either, and he set records. So, like, kind of miss me with that. There is momentum, and I think it's real. I believe in momentum, and you can let that thing go, and it will spiral. And I know this is a scrappy team, but if you can remind them what losing feels like, they'll run with it.
Dan, go back to the Chargers offense versus the New England Patriots defense graphic there for a second, because there's two other things that I think about as it relates to this offense and the elements. Number one, we have to talk about Ladd McConkey, who is literally this close to getting to 1,000 yards receiving on his rookie season. This is going to be interesting in terms of who's going to be covering Ladd McConkey now that one of the Jones,
Marcus Jones.
is, thank you, because they have two Joneses, Jonathan Jones and Marcus Jones. Marcus Jones is out for this game. Jonathan Jones, who's primarily your slot corner, is probably who's going to be covering Ladd McConkey the most, depending on where they put Ladd throughout the game. You have Christian Gonzalez. Is it going to be, who's going to be the third corner for New England that's going to move around? Who is that going to free up in the secondary for them in terms of guys that could possibly step up and make a play? The other aspect of this, Dan, Will Dissly coming back. You've seen the emergence of Stone Smart over these last 2 weeks, which has been great as it relates to the receiving aspect of this team. If this is the weather game that we all expect, I think that Will Dissly comes back in his traditional blocking role.
Huge.
And especially as it relates to getting this run game going. And especially if we're talking about, a little bit of shuffling along the offensive line and how that has struggled at times. Just give me Will Dissly in a blocking role. I don't care what side he's on. You want to put him on Rashawn Slater's side. You want to put him on Joe Alt's side. Fine. We've seen the magic that can happen when Scott Matlock and Tucker Fisk can get out for a block.
I was just going to
bust something open.
Give me the heavy. I want the heavy machinery out here.
It may turn into that type of game where you require as many bodies as possible. So if you have to live in 12 personnel for a majority of the game, fine. Who cares? Because this game could get ugly. And you're going to need
I want to see a Scott Matlock handoff.
Sure. Games like this are going to get ugly, and when you need your running game to step up, it's these type of games. So let's see it.
Drake Maye's looked pretty good. Now, he has looked, in comparison, he has looked good for a rookie, generally speaking. Like, he has glimpses, and he has been a top-tier rookie quarterback. I mean, he's better than the number one overall quarterback. I'll tell you that much. Now, live by the sword, die by the sword. He's thrown some picks too. He'll give them to you. And that's one of the biggest storylines I have for this Patriots offense versus the Chargers defense. Chargers defense is always hungry for those turnovers, whether it's tip passes, string interceptions, whether it's forced fumbles, just pure interceptions, sack fumble, whatever it is. New England will give it to you. They have the league leader in fumbles on the ground, in Ramondre Stevenson. Drake Maye, I believe, has thrown an interception in like 7 straight games, I believe is the number. Chargers will say thank you in a hurry for that. And if you can get Elijah Bolden back, and I can't stop talking about how this Chargers defense with coaching staff has kept this secondary afloat, given who is not there. I will remind everybody every week of how decimated this Chargers secondary is, which already, when fully healthy, people were questioning if it was good enough. Alohi Gilman, not playing. Marcus May, not playing. Cam Hart was not playing. You can go down the list over and over. Asante Samuel Jr. hasn't been seen in a minute. Tony Jefferson is out there playing. Like, we have folks going out there. You have Eddie Jackson's being signed. This secondary, without numerous safeties and corners, they have found a way to stay on a string. And I think that continues against rookie quarterback. This is like a Jesse Minter feast fest. He's like, I got a running back who fumbles and a quarterback who throws picks? Absolutely. I love that.
The other aspect of Drake Maye, Dan, something that he's very high on, is scrambling and rushing. Something that the Chargers defense has not dealt well with opposing quarterbacks like that, i.e. Kyler Murray, i.e. Lamar Jackson. Even at certain times last week against Denver, Bo Nix. Dan, he's high up there as it relates to rushing quarterbacks. I believe it's in the top 5, which is wild, all things considered, with New England's offense and their offensive line and the tribulations that they've had to go through this year, just trying to get some things put together. The biggest aspect of this, and this is why number 52 is currently on the screen, Dan, when you look at what New England does from a pass blocking aspect, it's not good. Collectively, that offensive line ranks 31st in the league in pass blocking. That's according to PFF. But more specifically, Dan, you look at who New England has at their tackle spots, Vidarian Lowe, Trey Jacobs. This should be one of those games where Khalil Mack and Joey Bosa are able to collapse the pocket, create pressure, and be able to, as you said, create turnovers or put Drake Maye on the ground. And that should dictate the pace for how the rest of this defense is going to go.
again, like, and I don't even think it's just a Khalil Mack, Joey Bosa thing. This is kind of an edge by committee. And I think it was good to see Bud Dupree out there getting stuff going. Tuli's been kind of a rock, but you haven't really seen much pop from him in terms of end results. You're paying a lot of money at that edge position. And if we're talking about ROI, I don't think you've gotten it from them yet. They've won without primarily a lot of pressure. They've had it at times. They've had some when it matters most, but they've also not had it when it matters most. And it's lost them games because of the lack of pressure they've given to opposing offenses. This is the one where you hurry the clock up. And while Drake May does run a bit, I think he rushes like 35 yards a game or something. So it's not crazy, but for a quarterback, it's pretty good. But the dude's got 10 picks on the season. I think it's 14 touchdowns, 10 picks. This is a game in which if it's me and it's Jesse Minter versus Drake May and all that he is and that offense is, I take Jesse Minter. I'm sorry, I just do. And you hope that it goes chalk with the way things have gone and what everyone has shown you so far this season. Still hurts me a bit. They have Antonio Gibson. That's the one guy I do not want to see go crazy. By far, I think so far it's probably there's three guys over the past several drafts that I've wanted most on this Chargers team. We all know about Tank Dell. Talked about him. Folks remember that guy over in Pittsburgh, Calvin Austin? I was such a Calvin Austin fan. The third, Jake, you remember very well, Antonio Gibson. I could have had him this offseason too. But I swear, Jake, if I see like an Antonio Gibson 70-yard touchdown, I'm going to blow a gasket. So everybody pray for me. Am I missing something? Like, what is the path for victory for this Patriots offense other than busted plays?
No, I mean, you bring up Antonio Gibson, Ramondre Stevenson, just them collectively as a running back unit, more so with Antonio Gibson, because that's probably how you're going to look to nullify the pass rush of the Chargers, much in the same type of way as it has been done over the past month. How do you do that? You get the ball out quickly. You do checkdowns, you do screen passes. If you're able to execute those and get positive yardage out of there to extend drives, that's one way to do it. Dan, there's a familiar face that's in a New England Patriots jersey over there, Hunter Henry. May not have the touchdowns on the season, but in terms of moving the ball,
he's his best friend.
He is definitely his best friend. And whether it's him or Austin Hooper that's utilized more in terms of red zone production in the end zone, they're capable. I'm interested to see ultimately in terms of just the safety valves overall. You talk about Hunter Henry, you mentioned Antonio Gibson, Demario Douglas in the slot for anything that's going to be short for the New England Patriots. That would probably be another in terms of where do you think that the ball is going to be distributed to and where to attack this Chargers offense, which anything that we've seen, and especially these moves with Eddie Jackson being elevated, now with Marcus May being out, Alohi Gilman still not playing, it always brings to mind, where is Derwin James going to play in this game?
It's probably a Hunter game.
So
in the box for sure. In the box / Hunter Henry.
Is there avenues for New England to get their wins throughout the game? Yes, there's avenues for them to attack. But if the Chargers are able to collapse that pocket and nullify that run game of the New England offense, they can easily take control of this.
This is the league's worst passing offense in the NFL in yards. The worst. 178.5 yards per game. Next closest are the Eagles, who run everything again. But the Eagles are also probably, I'm going to look at this real quick, Eagles number one rushing team in the NFL. So they don't throw a lot, but they run a hell of a lot. Least passing team in the NFL, right around them, coincidentally, Carolina Panthers, Chicago Bears, New York Giants, Indianapolis Colts, Tennessee Titans. All of these teams, absolutely terrible.
And yet this team took nearly to the brink one of the top seeds in the AFC. Is that just more of a division rival?
Yeah.
Familiar territory? Is that where was it just an aberration?
I think division games are always close for the most part. And I think Josh Allen and that team, it kind of reminded me of was it the Browns Ravens game where the Ravens lost and it just kept giving the Browns more and more opportunities to win. It just kept giving it back, kept giving it back, kept giving it back. I'm like, what are we doing? That's what that looked like. But then again, they came back and won and it was over. So
maybe good timing. Maybe good timing for New England Patriots to take the Buffalo Bills to the wire, just so that nobody on this Chargers team is going to be taking them like exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, like going back into how it plays in the favor of the Chargers, in my opinion, like one of the things that is their MO is they play safe when it comes to ball security. Like it is utmost important. They typically do not turn the ball over. I think Justin only has 3 picks in the entire season. They don't put it on the ground often. That's the recipe for losing teams to beat good teams, is when said good teams turn the ball over a bunch. If the Chargers play a clean football game, it's theirs. Even if the Patriots and Chargers play a good, clean football game, that's advantage Chargers. It's if the Chargers play a sloppy football game, that's how you get a path for victory for the Patriots. Coaching matters.
Sure does.
Coaching matters. And you talk about the Chargers have a definite advantage. I mean, Mayo's on the hot seat in New England. First-year head coach. Jim Harbaugh, Jesse Minter, Greg Roman, none of them, I don't think, are on the hot seat. They're all good coached by committee. Would like to see Greg Roman establish some trends here as we move towards the playoffs, hopefully. But from a defensive perspective, I think there are so many avenues for licking your chops. I really do.
Makes sense.
So, Jake, before we get to the bold and the game predictions, we got to get through another voicemail. There's a question here, given what we just saw with Denver, about the Chargers championship window. Let's see what they have to say.
Hey, guys. Appreciate everything you guys do. Awesome work. I believe in the NFL, windows open and close for teams to win championships. My question is, do you think our window for a championship is now officially open? We have made playoff appearances before with Anthony Lynn, Brandon Staley, and McCoy. Last time I truly feel like our window was open was from 2004 to 2009 when we had some pretty good teams with great coaching between Marty and North Turner. What are you guys' thoughts? Is our window officially open? I mean, I know we're going into the playoffs now with Big Jim Harbaugh, and I feel like this ain't going to be the last time that we go into the playoffs. I think that we're going to continue, and our window to actually win a championship is now officially open again. Thoughts?
I think it says something that in 1 year, what the Chargers have been able to accomplish. You just talked about to literally this second, right now. Not the New England Patriots game, not the playoffs, not anything. What the Chargers have accomplished in a single year, from front office to head coach to corresponding positional coaches, to taking away 2 of the biggest weapons for your quarterback.
Roster turnover. Injuries.
Roster turnover, draft picks, free agency. And collectively, you're playing better than you have since Justin Herbert set foot on an NFL field.
You're playing smarter.
That's culture change. That's immediate buy-in from the players. That's how you turn an NFL roster around. Caller mentioned playoff window from 2004 to 2009. That was Marty. But you have to remember, even when Norv Turner took over that team, it kind of reminded me of like a Jimmy Johnson, Barry Switzer type of situation where the talent was so good, even when Jimmy left, that they were able to still produce. I felt like that was the case with Marty's team when Marty left and Norv Turner was on the roster. That roster was so talented and was able to produce. Here, I think you have an opportunity to have both. Because year 1 of Jim Harbaugh's 5-year deal and you're getting results like this, and we've talked about it on this show, this essentially will be the worst offense that Justin Herbert has played with his entire year. And it shouldn't get any worse than this, whether we're talking about offensive line or weapons at the wide receiver, tight end, or running back position.
I mean, it kind of can't get worse than this.
It's tough to, and yet you're still above 500 and you're on the cusp of making the playoffs. And defensively, time will tell if Jesse Minter ends up still remaining with this roster, but there has been a culture shift on the defense as well. And when you are able to put those two things together, that's when you start getting into the conversation of the same type of culture building that has kept the Pittsburgh Steelers alive for so long. That was the culture change when Andy Reid arrived with the Kansas City Chiefs and has seemingly not left. Now, it's different as it relates to the playoff picture because why? Between 2004 and 2009, the Chargers dominated the AFC West. That's not the case anymore, and it hasn't been the case for a long time because you have to face that damn Kansas City Chiefs team twice every single year. So even if you may be staring at wild card appearances for the next 5 years straight, I think you have something going here with Jim Harbaugh, with his front office, and collectively how you're going to build this roster moving forward. It all starts with the culture. It all starts with the culture because Dan said it plenty of times. You have seemingly taken in some respects, especially on the offensive side of the ball, a less talented roster and have gotten them to produce better than they have through 3.5 years of Brandon Staley and through the time that they were with Anthony Lynn. How do you do
that? I appreciate the call, by the way. Thank you for calling into the hotline. And thank you for the shout out. The fact that we're even asking the question of is the championship playoff window for this team officially open now, to me, that is such a massive success. If you just added that to the bulletin board of goals for the 2024 season to where by the end of the season, I'm asking, is the window officially open now? What? We had people saying this team was still a 5-win team or a 7-win team. Lucky to be a winning team. I had the team winning 10 games. If anything, maybe making a playoff victory. Maybe. That's anything after that, gravy to me. Do I think the championship window is open? I think it depends on the seeding. Because there's a path, which we'll get to in a second. But do I think that they can go up against Baltimore and then either Buffalo or Kansas City and win both of them? I'm sorry, I don't. But the fact that we're even having this discussion, I think is such a testament to this coaching staff and to how much has shifted. And it gives such a bright future to this Chargers team. Give them cap space, which they have this upcoming season. Give them more draft picks and comp picks, which they're already starting to get this offseason. Give them more time with this coaching staff and building this offense, the offensive line. Give Justin more weapons. The sky's the limit.
Yeah.
And so you got to be happy. You got to be excited.
Last aspect of that, Dan, is in short, as far as I know I kind of went on a long-winded answer in terms of giving the yes or no answer. I feel like it's opening. You mentioned the seeding, the other powerhouses of the AFC. Time will tell on that, on whether or not the Chargers are able to get through those teams. But Dan, you even think about just the AFC West in general. Denver's going to be a better team next year. To me, it's going to rival what the AFC North is with the Bengals, the Steelers, and the Baltimore Ravens. To me, next year is going to rival that type of division. AFC West it may turn back the clock to the way it was back in those early 2000 days, where all of a sudden you had 3 teams out of there that were super competitive. And it's been a long time since this division has actually felt that competitive. So there's still a lot of elements for this team to overcome. But in general, I think it's opening. Let's see how open we can get it.
So I think for me, It's not opening, but to me, it feels like the doorknob is turned.
Okay, that's that's where you're at. Got it.
I don't think the door's opened yet, but let's get to playoff seedings before we get to the bold predictions, final score, like scenarios here for a second. Question for you. If you had a choice, let's just say the Chargers win. They wrap up playoff spot. They're solidified at worst number 6. And number 6 would probably play either most likely Baltimore or Pittsburgh. Who knows? Would you rather sit your team in week 18, sit your starters, get everybody healthy, basically treat it like a little bye week, and then go up against a Baltimore or someone of that caliber divisional round or the wild card round? Or would you rather go for both wins? And if the cookie crumbles the way it very well could, you end up going against the Texans. And then after that, possibly a matchup with possibly the Chiefs. Which of those would you rather have? Would you rather go mini bye and then take your guess, hope for a win against Baltimore? Go for broke to get the better seeding with risk, of course, but you then get Houston and then possibly a date with the Chiefs. Which would you do?
I mean, the good thing is the Chargers won't have to wait long to figure out that answer because the Broncos and the Bengals play each other tomorrow night. And if the Bengals end up coming out victorious, that opens up the window for it, Dan, because then the Bengals and the Steelers are going to play the final week of the season. And if the Steelers drop to the Bengals and somehow the Bengals end up making this miraculous comeback and getting their slot in the playoffs and Pittsburgh drops, it changes everything. To me, considering the fact that you have an opportunity now, given the fact that the Steelers have dropped their last 3 games, a position that probably we wouldn't be talking about for the Chargers 3 weeks ago. Something just tells me that if it all falls that way, the Chargers win tomorrow, Denver loses tomorrow, Indianapolis is playing without Anthony Richardson this week. I think he's actually officially questionable. Excuse me on that. He's officially questionable, but it hasn't looked good throughout this year. Who knows what happens with Indianapolis and Miami this weekend? If you unmute yourself, I could actually hear you.
My bad. All that has to happen for this Chargers team to get the 5 seed is they have to win both games and Pittsburgh has to lose to Cincy. That's it.
If it was me, Dan, all things considered, I know that to get to that spot, there's still a lot that has to happen.
They got to win 2 games and they're going to need Pittsburgh to lose. That's it.
I think that Pittsburgh can lose that game. The way that the Bengals offense rolls. And if you're telling me that they win this game against Denver in a seemingly it's a win and you're in type of situation with the Bengals, I think that they would win that final week.
Against Denver?
Yeah.
So then week 18, your scenario is risk the 7, risk the 6. You play to get the 5 seed.
I play to get the 5 seed. Truth be told, I think that would also be Jim Harbaugh's attitude too. Now, you're talking to someone who 2 weeks ago was saying about a hypothetical situation that if you were to win that Tampa Bay game at the time, and if you were to win this Denver Broncos game, you could find yourself in a scenario to where you could be sitting your players. And if it ends up being like that, obviously, in that type of scenario, if you can't go any higher than the 6 seed, then yes, I would rest some of your key players in if the game is seemingly meaningless against the Raiders. Don't take any unnecessary risk. But if there's extra opportunity for seeding, for me to go to 6-5, given who your opponents are, Dan, we said it just a couple weeks ago. I wouldn't mind seeing Kansas City again in the playoffs. I don't care. I don't care anymore. I really don't give a damn.
I'd rather play Kansas City than Buffalo.
Yes.
Even though Kansas City has every single win by black magic, doesn't matter.
Yes.
Still rather play Kansas City.
I agree. So The easier
imagine the
path,
euphoria, by the way.
the easier path, seemingly in terms of matchups, to me, yeah, Houston. If you're in a position where you can grab the 5 seed,
That Houston team looks.
play Houston. If you're able to get past them and go to Kansas City,
Be the team that stops a three-peat? Like,
hell yeah. Hell yeah.
yeah, I'm with you.
You talk about euphoria. I could think of a couple other euphemisms that if that was able to happen that I can't say on the show, that's for Chargers Unleashed After Dark.
Yes. Last voicemail, Jake. Let's get to these bold predictions and final score 323-902-7586. As you're watching the game or right after the game, give us your feelings, your thoughts. We'll see what happens. Last one, Jake, on the Chargers Unleashed hotline before we give our bold in-game predictions. Friend of the show, Athir, fresh off of his apology, fresh off of his roasting of everybody, giving us a bold prediction for this Chargers-Patriots game.
Dan, Jake, this is it here. My bold prediction for Saturday is going to be the defense will allow the Patriots to get in the red zone 2 times the entire game. Chargers win 24-6. Defense, 5 sacks, 3 turnovers. Let's go, baby. Clinching the playoffs.
Okay, so in the red zone twice, not end zone twice. Red zone twice, 2 field goals, 5 sacks, 24-6.
Again, this is coming off of the New England Patriots putting up an opening 14 points on the Buffalo Bills. Let's just make that. Look, I'll say this much for Athir. It's not the most outrageous prediction that he's ever made. So that's number one. Number two, the factors in which he's talking about, he said 5 sacks, 3 turnovers. I don't foresee that to be impossible considering some of the shuffling around New England's offensive line. I mentioned Cole Strange now stepping in at center. The tackles for New England are not that good. If you can win the trenches, which was a problem for the Chargers over the last few weeks, but if you can build off of what you did in that second half against the Denver Broncos, you got something. Mm-hmm. If you're able to get to Drake May and force him into making some mistakes, it could turn that way. Now, I personally think that given the weather of this game, it's going to even things out a little bit more in terms of how the game is ultimately going to be dictated by both teams. And that's why you see number 27 on the screen right now, because he is part of my bold predictions and ultimately he will be part of my final score. But again, it's not the most outrageous prediction ever. Before I give my final score, here's the bold prediction, Dan. Like I said, I think that J.K. Dobbins is going to come back with a vengeance. Unbeknownst to all mankind. Unheard of all mankind. I think this is a game that he's unknown to all mankind, whatever it is. I think he's itching to get back. And I think Will Dissly coming back, officially questionable, but signs are hopefully pointing that way. If Will Dissly comes back and you just go into a power package for a majority of this game and are able to win on first and second down, and if the Chargers are put in third and short for a majority of this game, Dan, that's going to be tough for New England. If you can dictate the pace starting with J.K. Dobbins, your chances of winning this game are huge.
Don't look now, Jake, by the way. 234 yards over the next 2 games. That's what stands between J.K. Dobbins and 1,000 yards, even with an IR stint.
It's because he was the leading rusher in the NFL, essentially, through the first, 3 weeks of the season. He carried it so much and got out to such a jump above everybody else at that point in time. That's why he has that type of stat remaining for him. But Dan, yeah, I feel like this is his game to get going. If there's ever a time to start utilizing the screen game again, which is still a rarity for the Chargers, J.K. Dobbins is your pass catching back. You can do that. It allows so many more outlets for Justin Herbert to get going. So much in the way that I did in week 1 against the Las Vegas Raiders, J.K. Dobbins is My bold prediction to not only go over 100 yards, but to see the end zone twice in his return from IR.
Final score?
Again, I'll say the weather will even things out a little bit. I'll go 24-14 Chargers.
24-14, over 100 yards for J.K. Dobbins, 2 touchdowns. Bold score, bold prediction. Okay. I don't know what the money line is, but if whatever it is, I'm taking it for a Drake May interception. I think I've had this a couple times, but I'm getting this one, and I miss it. The 1 week I didn't do a defensive touchdown was the week that they did actually get a defensive touchdown. I think it'll be a pick 6 this week. I think Chargers win.
Mind you, Dan, the line for this is 4.5. That's the line.
I think Chargers going to win 23-13. I don't think they get in the end zone twice, but I'll give them 13. This Patriots team is not the same as the Chiefs and as the Broncos and as the Bengals. Typically, Chargers defense does great against bad offenses and not so great against great offenses, and this is the former. So I'm taking that. Jake, anything else? We had some fun voicemails. Chargers big football game tomorrow.
Huge.
Anything else before we get out of here?
Win and you're in. Clinch it tomorrow morning. Get it out of the way.
We got to have some wagers on what we'll do if the Chargers can clinch a playoff spot, but what if they can clinch the 5 seed?
Well, I know you have been coming off of a busy and physically strenuous week.
Oof.
We announced it during the last live show, but we have yet to actually announce it officially.
Mm-hmm.
We have the signed Josh Palmer jersey giveaway.
We do.
That is going to go up, and that's regardless what happens on Saturday morning.
Something else is going to go up.
Okay.
If they get another victory here. Jake, this has been fun. Appreciate you. Thank you so much for everybody who tunes in. If you can, do us a favor, hit that like and subscribe. Helps us out a ton. As we round out 2024, just a quick moment. Thank you to everybody. I know everyone has a lot of stuff going on, and you have so many options when it comes to Chargers content and so many amazing content creators. I'm grateful. We are grateful for your opportunity to listen to us and for our opportunity to be in your ears and on your eyes here for this year and for the last 5 seasons. And just nothing but gratitude, love, respect, and excitement for the year coming in 2025. For Jake, you can find him at Jake D. Hefner, myself at Dan W. Sports. Thank you so much for tuning in. Happy holidays, happy new year, and we'll talk to you next on the next Chargers Unleashed.